You'll find links to Mitchell Brunt. I'll start again in English. Hello, good evening, and welcome. I'm Simon Bestwick.
And I'm Gemma Files, and this, of course, is No Darkness, but ours. Supplementary.
Yeah, so we recently reviewed Joanne Mitchell's extraordinary feature debut, Broken Bird, here on No Darkness But Ours. And if you missed it, you'll find a link in the description below. We both absolutely loved the film, so we're both delighted to welcome Joanne onto this show as this evening's guest. So, Joanne, thanks very much for joining us, and congratulations on Broken Bird.
Oh, thank you. It's really nice to meet you both, and thank you for taking the time to watch the movie and of course review the film.
Yeah, I mean, as I say, we loved it. I think it struck both of us as being very much a film about grief and about how people deal, or more accurately in this context, don't deal with it. Do you feel that's accurate?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think it's a really central theme to the movie, and not only is it obviously it's very acute for Sybil's, her story. It's based. The grief is really based in her life and her reality, but also in the sort of satellite characters, which are Mr. Thomas and Emma, and then to a degree Tina, because obviously she loses someone. But so everyone's dealing with grief in their own way. Grief is grief, but everyone's had a different experience with it. So
yeah, between Emma and Sybil in particular, you go a long way, sort of feeling like they should be able to cross over in their shared grief. They should have empathy for each other, and then you're like, no, it's not going to work out.
No, yeah, well, exactly. We find out why, they don't have empathy. But I think, there's that moment in the film where their lives do cross when they sort of accidentally bump into each other outside the poetry bar, and then everything just changes, because obviously Emma's a police officer. She kind of remembers it, but she can't. When you're in that kind of grief state, and obviously when she saw her was when she was in the funeral parlor for her son, and obviously Sybil was in a slightly different disguise, but the cheekbones and the pale skin, there's she's definitely onto something, but she can't quite put her finger on it. So hence then things start to sort of gain momentum towards the finale. And I suppose for me, it was really important that right at the end there was a connection between Emma and Sybil. And I think there was, there's just a moment where they come together when Sybil, no spoilers, but when that happens.
No spoilers, exactly.
It's so difficult to talk about this without accidentally spoiling something that people haven't watched yet.
Yeah. There's a bunch of different. I always hesitate to talk about references these days, or influences potentially, because I often feel that audiences are less apt to get them. But just looking at it the first time, I saw a lot of Poe in Sybil.
A lot of what, sorry?
A lot of Edgar Allan Poe.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, this kind of,
right.
Yeah, not just the gothicness, but also the way that she's performative and poetic about.
Yes, well, yes, exactly.
I'm going to take my grief and convert it into beauty. There's nothing quite as beautiful as a dead woman, for example, a young woman early dead. But she also reminded me a lot of the main character of Ruth Rendell's Demon in My View, which is entirely organized around the Poe poem of the same name.
Aha, okay, great. I haven't seen that, so I should definitely check that out. So what's that called again?
A Demon in My View by Ruth Rendell.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. I'm always looking for things to my view. Okay, great.
From childhood's hour, I have not been as others were. I have not seen as others saw, etc., etc.
Lovely. Yeah, I mean, think with Sybil, her poetry isn't great. It's very personal to one's. I mean, she obviously thinks it's fantastic, but
yes.
It's pretty poor, which I think which is quite sweet, really. And then I think it kind of grows, and I think by the end, her poetry is quite profound. When she's on the stage and she's looking back at her life.
I do think that it's a case of like, if you live your poetry, then it becomes super profound. Maybe if you're just doing it, I don't know. Maybe things would have been different if she just did it on TikTok every once in a while.
Yeah, just got it out of the system in that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Hello. Once again, yes. I'm the dead poet.
Yeah.
The performance, I mean, everything in for a film like Broken Bird to work, everything has to be exactly kind of spot on, which it is. But I mean, the performances are absolutely key in a film like that. And obviously the performance everyone's been talking about is, quite rightly, is Rebecca Calder as Sybil Chamberlain, which I'd like to come back to in a moment. But one that we didn't really discuss when we reviewed the film, we really should have, is Saccharissa Claxton as Emma, because it's an essential role. It's got a counterpoint to Sybil. But in some ways, a bit of a thankless one, because Sybil gets to go to these great gothic flights of fantasy in this weird fantasy world, whereas Emma is dealing with her grief, obviously very quite badly and unhealthily, but in a way that's much more prosaic, a way that much more of us would recognise from everyday life. So it's quite a tough role in that sense. I mean, was it? And she's in a character who isn't in the original short film Sybil. That's one of the additional things that's been worked into it, and very well. So I mean, was it tough finding the right actress to play that part?
Yeah, it was actually. There was we did audition I did audition quite a lot of actors, and it was all done by Zoom, because I was in Serbia at the time, so I couldn't actually. And that goes for the same with Rebecca. So everything was kind of, a bit scary, because I was not actually ever in the same room with somebody. So and obviously that makes things different when you meet people, as we all know. And when I saw Saccharissa's performance in the audition, I really liked her strength, because there was a real sort of earthy strength to her. Yeah. And she was very grounded and very warm and intelligent, and obviously she had to be a police officer, so she's smart, but also she's suffering a huge loss. So for me, it was getting a real juxtaposition, a real difference between her and Sybil. So Sybil had to be slightly more. Well, her character is so different from Emma's. So they're absolutely poles apart. And when I saw Saccharissa's tape, and then I met her, I knew that she had this real solidity to her, and she wasn't afraid to go there, because she's got young children herself. Yeah. And it was, it's quite a scary thing when you're a mother of very small little babies, that you could feel that you've got to go to that place where that grief, that darkness, and she really went there. Yeah. And I suppose when we in the script, the shooting script was actually Emma and Sybil had almost as much. It was kind of like they were both. I think Emma's part was definitely bigger than it is on the screen, because what we realized in the edit was that we should really just be following one person, otherwise it's a bit confusing. So we just had to sort of tailor it, edit it, Sasha's stuff, even though it was all brilliant and it was very difficult to do and I didn't want to do it. I needed the balance to be right. So we needed to be, with Sybil. And you know, it sort of gutted me to have to do that, because Sasha was fantastic. But in order for the film to be balanced and work, we had to have that main sort of protagonist, antagonist, which
totally. And also, I think there's an interesting balance problem as well, because in a way, Sybil is very enjoyable to follow.
Yes. Yes.
And so those moments where we return to Emma, we understand the stakes, we understand the damage, you know, the hurt people kind of damage that she's spreading around her.
Yes,
and,
always.
And even the damage that she's carrying as well.
Yes, there's a lot of damage in Sybil. You know, she's broken, isn't she? She's completely, but she doesn't ever feel sorry for herself. That's the point. She doesn't sort of turn in on herself and say, "Oh, poor me." She just finds a way because of what she has experienced. When you've experienced something as devastating as what she has experienced as a child, you learn to cope. You know, you have those strategies, and her strategies are just very, very different from most strategies.
Yeah, they're you know, kind of Norman Bates meets Audrey Tautou kind of.
Yes. Audrey Tautou, absolutely. You know, I think there was and Norman Bates, brilliant. I think when we were really sort of developing the script, and when I was sort of planning everything and production design and with the art department and all those kind of things, I was really, the character of Amelie came up in my head, you know, because I wanted her to have this kind of frailty, but also to be so super strong.
Scary strong, in fact.
Yes, I think it's sort of, me and Rebecca used to go, okay, is this Sybil 2.0 now? And we would just kind of go, yeah, she's gone to that level now. You know, don't think too much about it and just go there, you know. So that was kind of our little code, you know, is this Sybil 2.0? No, this isn't vulnerable Sybil. No, this is Sybil 2.0. So it was really fun to play with that with Rebecca, and obviously, needless to say, Rebecca is outstanding, as you've already mentioned, and as is Rebecca, and as is James and Robin, everyone who's in it, you know. I think that's the important thing to realise is obviously Rebecca is the lead. She's sort of she's the captain of the ship, so to speak, and everyone else is supporting her. And without everybody else, without those really great performances, those satellite characters, I think it would definitely affect her performance as well. So I mean, she's a strong enough, wonderful actress, but I think it really elevates her performance.
Working off, isn't it?
Yes.
And the Audrey Tautou thing. I mean, both of us independently, when we came together for the interview. Yeah, I thought. I mean, Rebecca's got the face for it. She's got this amazing face with incredible bone structure. And I've got to cut bacon with those cheekbones. But you know, she can look like quite pixie-ish and impish from one angle, and then from the next, there's this real kind of commanding, quite terrifying kind of strength.
Like a witch, like a priestess.
We both kind of thought, my God, that is kind of Audrey Tautou. If Audrey Tautou was like totally psychopathic.
I mean, and you know, it was. I think Rebecca just was so up for going that extra mile. You know, she was really sort of, you know. It was her performance. Well, you know, I don't have to say it's so nuanced, and there's so many layers to her performance, and everything is really rooted in truth, and it's her reality. It's not you don't feel like you're watching someone play a part. You're watching someone be someone. You know, she is Sybil, and you know, I think and she really made that part her own. She really encompassed everything. She was incredible. Yeah.
Totally.
Iconic.
Yeah, I think so. And I think, you know, and actually, funnily enough, it was her idea when she was talking to wardrobe and makeup. to have the fringe, and she said, oh, I think this is really, because they were trying different styles on her, and she said, Jo, what do you think of this? Do you think this is so? And I went, that's brilliant. I mean, are you happy with that? Because I'm really happy with that. That's fantastic. But that was her. She said, I just feel that she's like this, and everything's quite sort of contained, and but then there's so many places where she can go by having this kind of darkness and this suit which is all buttoned up and everything's tight and everything's perfect, and as you said, angular, and but then she can fall apart.
And she's just absolutely magnificent. It's, I mean, I can just imagine. I'm guessing that when you saw her audition, it was just like, yeah.
Well, it was actually, and the thing is, it was very important to me that it was the north of England. I didn't want to set it down south, or it was really important that we had that landscape, that kind of the sort of the grittiness of the north and the beauty of the north. But so I had some actors who, all the actors that I met were wonderful, but I had some, it had to be northern. Whatever happened, it had to be northern. And when Rebecca did her self-tape, she did it in Northeast. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's brilliant. I hadn't thought of the character from that side of the country. It was always sort of Yorkshire, Lancashire, that kind of, and the thing that really sort of bowled me over was because everyone that I know or I have met from the Northeast are really lovely, warm, kind, fun people. So automatically I was like, I really like you because I love your accent. And and I thought, that's great, because there's so many layers there. So when she did that accent, which I hadn't thought of, because actually her family are from the Northeast, her family from the Northeast as well. So she just kind of, it wasn't, she said it, I just said, I think the audition, she didn't have time to really sort of master a Yorkshire accent, for example, although I'm sure she could do that quite easily. So she said, oh, I'll just put my Newcastle accent on, and that was it. I was like, brilliant. I mean, obviously everything else, and I remember showing her tape to the producers, and I did say, this is the person I want, and they had to go through it, and so and they said, but that's so I never
the girl.
I really felt like, I think and I think I've said this before, is when obviously we went through a couple of auditions and meetings and stuff, all on Zoom, but I felt that I was really leaning into her performance. I wasn't just watching admiringly, I was kind of really leaning in, and that was, for me, it was instinctive, totally instinctive, that she was the right person.
Yeah.
Can I ask about the choice to shoot in Serbia?
Yes, of course. So basically, it wasn't my choice at all. It was that kind of terrified me, simply because I'd never been to Serbia. But it was the producers and the production company. They were the Catalyst Studios. They were doing a slate of 6 films, all by female filmmakers. Directors, producers, and all female-led cast. And they wanted a genre film, and I was called or emailed by someone I knew who worked for the company, and I sort of said, Serbia, wow, okay. And then one thing led to another. Long story short, I got the job, and we went to Serbia, but I was really frightened because I thought, the only thing I knew about Serbia was obviously the stuff that you read about, but also I just thought it was the architecture to me was so brutalist, and I that's what I'd seen, naively. But when I went to Belgrade, I had to make the north of England in Belgrade, in Serbia. And when I went there, I was just like, oh my God, this is, I don't see any, but there's no pubs here, because originally the poetry bar was going to be set in an old pub, with beams and, sort of thatched roof, whatever, proper English pub. But there was nothing like that in Serbia. And everything's location. So, okay, so then I went into this by mistake. I went into it, well, not by mistake, but I just went in for a pizza in this place, and I went, right, this is brilliant. We can change it to a sort of pretentious poetry bar in Hebden Bridge or something like that. So, so that's what we did, and so it was just compromising all the time. And actually, we had an amazing location team, and they were constantly sending me things, taking me, and I was going, that's not quite right, that's not quite right. And then we found all the locations, and obviously I was super happy with all the locations, and I felt like it worked. You don't actually know where it is, I mean, unless you know it's definitely filmed in Serbia, but you can suspend your disbelief, I think, and feel that this could be the north of England. So
absolutely.
I was happy with
I'm friends with Dominic on Facebook, and I think he posted about Broken Bird, and how proud he was of you. And he was like, Joanne's had to spend 6 months in Serbia making this, and that was the only way I would have known it was set in Serbia. Basically, if I'd watched it, the landscape there just it looks very, very northern. It has that kind of that rugged, sometimes quite bleak and austere beauty that I've often found if catching, like when I used to live in Manchester, I would catch the bus sometimes out to Nelson to go to Pendle, and you're going across that stretch of countryside, and all the kind of the few bits of modern lampposts and cottages, they look very, very sort of like if you could just wipe them away very easily in the rain, and you'd have this landscape that would look sort of like something for the Middle Ages.
Suddenly you're in like the Northern Gate.
You're
in Winterfell.
I mean, and I have to say, I have to say that we were really lucky when we filmed it, because we filmed in November, December, so it was perfect because everything was slightly later, like the leaves were turning later, and everything was slightly later than it is in the UK, because it's it was really warm in September and October there, and I was thinking, I don't want to film in this heat. I want it to be cold and damp, and luckily the sort of the stars aligned, and it was perfect. The actual the mood and tone of the landscape was actually really perfect, and the light was fantastic, and we had an amazing crew, an amazing production team, and I think it was a lot of fun to make out there. I mean, it was really hard. I'm not kind of I'm being positive, but there were lots of things which were really difficult. Of course, for a start, I don't speak Serbian.
I was going to ask about that.
So I don't obviously speak Serbian, and the crew were all Serbian. All the HODs were Serbian, apart from my producer and associate producer who were British, and then the whole of the cast were British, and then obviously some of the execs were American. But at first I never felt, well, it's interesting because I felt sometimes frustrated, probably more at the beginning, because I didn't understand because people were talking and I'm like, what are they saying? And not saying anything bad, but a lot of them, some of them just didn't even speak English. Mm-hmm. So I had a really amazing first AD, and she spoke about 4 languages, and English was very simple for her, and so she was just brilliant. So sometimes I would speak to her about what shot I would want, or where everything was going, and she would then relate it to the crew in Serbian, because time was really tricky, and there was never enough. So we just said, look, shorthand, just tell them in Serbian. We wanted it always to be in English, but at a certain point we just went, do you know what, forget it, it's fine, just speak in Serbian. So it was great, it was good, but it took some getting used to, for sure. But then everyone just sort of found their way, their rhythm. Everyone was very focused, and the crew were incredibly hardworking. So there was a lot to do in, I think it was 25 days of shooting.
Wow. So you were there for like 6 months and all, but it was the actual shooting was a comparatively small part of that.
Yes, there was a lot of, well, I suppose I was there really 4 months, and then there was always, I had to keep going back, for some of the post-production. So I suppose all in all it was probably about 6 months, but I was actually there for sort of a chunk of 4 months, and then there was a lot of pre-production. I was out there for maybe a couple of weeks before and looking at locations and then so the shoot was it 20 or 25 days? I can't remember. I think it was 25 because we did 5-day weeks, so I think it was 25 days. But yeah, we managed. We didn't, I had to skip and miss some shots just because of time, but we didn't have to miss any scenes. It was everything we managed to do. But that's really thanks to the crew, because they were so fast and just focused. It was brilliant.
It looks so beautifully controlled, and I could really tell that there was a lot of obviously pre-planning that went into it. It gave me the impression of being intensely storyboarded, even if it wasn't.
Well, funnily enough, no, it wasn't. Interestingly, I did having never been to Serbia and it being my first feature film, I was slightly terrified and kind of thinking, oh, what have I got myself into? At the same time being very excited, but let's be realistic here. I did do a shot list. I did a camera plan shot list before I went out there. So, which is kind of crazy, but because obviously I hadn't seen the locations, but for me, it was really about sort of getting everything in my head so that I knew it was all going to change. Of course, it's all going to change, but I had a sort of framework that I could work with if all else failed. And then when I met my DOP, who has since become a really good friend of mine, and he's fantastic, we then worked again together on the shots, and he really saw my vision. He really understood it, and because that was part of my fear was that they're Serbian. I don't know any Serbian people. This is a very British movie, and it's kind of very dark and quite some sort of comedy moments in it, and it's a bit sick, and it's kind of all these things. And what are they going to think of me? and actually, they absolutely loved it. All the people who read it, obviously the HODs, absolutely loved the film, and the story, the script. So they really got it, and it was a bit of a revelation to me, because they've got a really amazing sense of humor, and they really like British stuff, British comedies, and like quoting things to me, and I'm like, that's bizarre,
Is there a fondness for Python by any chance?
Yes, Monty Python and all of those.
In a lot of Eastern European countries, former communist bloc countries, there's a sort of huge amount of love for Monty Python I found with people from that part of the world.
Yeah, it really, honestly, there were, and there was obviously Monty Python, and then there was also things like Only Fools and Horses, and all these kind of things, and I'd be talking about them, and they would be quoting it. It was brilliant. It was absolutely brilliant. So I kind of thought, and they said, oh, we have a very similar to a British sense of humor, and I was like, wow, okay, yeah, I think I can see that now. But they were very, very warm.
Yeah, warmth, but also, of trying to control little tiny parts of a completely uncontrollable world.
Yes.
It's like, as long as I can get this done, this one thing.
They're very dedicated and very and very intense about what they want. And if you say, okay, this isn't working, let's try something, they'll move everything. They'll move the tracks in seconds almost, and it's done. And you're like, oh, that was quick. Okay, let's move on. So great.
Oh, perfect.
Okay, I think we're coming to the end of of our appointed time here. So, Joanne, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. It's been absolutely brilliant to talk to you. And congratulations again on Broken Bird. I hope it wins all the awards and everything everybody loves it, and that, I mean, I suppose if there's just time for one tiny question before we go, my question would be, what next?
What next? Well, hopefully, well, for Broken Bird, it's going to be going on the platforms soon. I think it's on Monday, but I don't quote me on that. But I'm pretty sure it's going out on UK platforms on Monday, and I'm going to be going to a couple of sort of Q&As and panels, and hopefully showing the film on the big screen, because I can't bear the fact that it's not going to be on the big screen in the UK anymore, but it's one of those things. And then hopefully in the US as well. But this is all for the UK at the moment. But then I think we maybe, I don't want to tempt fate, but maybe have a US theatrical. I'm not sure yet. I am working on another feature film with some different producers than at Catalyst, and it's like a dark fantasy. It's an amazing script. I haven't written it, so I have been working actually for the past sort of 6-7 months with the sort of writers and the producers, and hopefully filming the first quarter of next year in Rome. Fingers crossed. If all goes according to plan. These things can change in a heartbeat. So
yes,
if it works, then fantastic, because I think it will be a great film. So they're pushing it. The producers are really pushing it at the moment. So doing all the things that they need to do. So yeah, I hope that works. And I just I really want Broken Bird to be as well, to sort of, pardon the awful pun, but to really fly, and hopefully for everyone, because everyone I know it's awful, I didn't mean to say that.
Laughing, necromantic, corpse bird. Yeah,
yes.
Absolutely. Shedding its feathers all over everything.
Yes.
Okay.
And the horrible rain.
Yes, absolutely. And so yeah, because I think I think so many people put their heart and soul into it, and that includes the writing team, that includes the original storyteller, that includes screenplay, that includes all the producers, all the actors, everything. So, I just hope it's successful for everybody, really.
Yeah. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Yeah.
Everything crossed.
Loved everything that sort of the Mitchell Brunt kind of team has kind of produced as well. We Love Before Dawn, and because of course you're a huge part of that as well, and Wolf Manor, just like wow, basically. So we're totally,
Thank you, and thank you as well for being really supportive and generous, and it's great to be able to chat with fellow-minded artists, creatives, whatever we want to call ourselves.
Yeah, the horror-minded, the hive mind, I guess.
Yes, I think so.
You'll find links to Mitchell Brunt Productions in the description below. If you liked this, please hit that like button, share this interview, and subscribe to our channel. And if you'd like to support No Darkness But Ours, you can do so through our Patreon or Ko-Fi pages, links to which, once again, are below. So we'll be back to lower the tone again soon. And in the meantime, thanks again to Joanne Mitchell for joining us. And until next time, I have been Simon Bestwick.
I remain Gemma Files, and this, of course, is still and always No Darkness But Ours.
Oh my God, another one where we didn't make a single dick joke.
Oh my God, that's true. Well, I tried to put some, necrophiliac stuff in there.
There is that as well.
Yeah, exactly.